government come to consult with Wayne on what are the best practices in terms of crime prevention. He went into the city and engaged all stakeholders, heard them, understood, as they were talking right in the previous panel, talking even to criminals, because they're the ones who are actually also stakeholders, right? And thinking what could be done to prevent crime or prevent more. It's not only about preventing crime, but saving people from making that wrong turn in their lives, for which then they remain basically, you know, in a limbo for the rest of their lives, which then makes a person less effective. We spoke about the social contract, right? Vertical, horizontal, right? And if you're in a position where you cannot contribute to your society, you are essentially then more likely to go in the wrong path. So how we help these people, rather than only talk about law enforcement, but how do we help these people not to go that path? And so that's where Wayne comes to actually talk to us about these techniques, and then that can open up all kinds of possibilities for you people to think of your careers, how you can develop, whatever you do, how that can be utilized later. I have here some high school students who came, who perhaps a future Broward College student. I have, like we said, we have people from the Sheriff Department, 44 years? Yeah, 44 years in the service. Imagine that. I have my very, very, very dear student, Boaz Levy, who was here a couple of years ago. He now is, this is the student who actually has 3 published papers as an undergraduate student. Guys, I don't know, do you understand what does that mean? But he came back to Broward College, appreciates what we do. We have George Gonos, the leading experts in labor issues, the one that also President Biden, I was actually also part of that meeting, kind of comes to talk to when it comes to labor issues. So the top of the line here, right now in Broward College North Campus, all so that you see yourself as really important people. As I keep telling you, you are important, you just don't know yet. So Wayne, please take over.
This is where to begin. My work in the pork and beans projects, Liberty Square, goes back to the mid-90s. And it's a bittersweet work. How much time do we have?
We have about half an hour.
Half an hour, okay. I want to give you a little context. Liberty Square was one of the first public housing developments in the United States. And the reason why it was built was because people lived in Overtown, black people lived in Overtown, and they worked in downtown Miami and Miami Beach. But they couldn't live there, and they couldn't play there. They couldn't be on the beach there. And that's including folks like Muhammad Ali, who could box for the world championship at the Fontainebleau or wherever the fight took place, but he couldn't stay there. Nor Martin Luther King or any other people. They would go to the Hampton House, which is in Brownsville, not far from Liberty Square. So, part of the challenge for people that were hiring the people from Overtown was that in Overtown, the houses didn't have AC, they didn't have, good infrastructure. It was all rudimentary infrastructure. So there's a lot of exposure to disease and stuff. And the people that were hiring the people from Overtown did not want them coming into their homes with all these diseases and all this. So there was a preacher at one of the Catholic church, I think it was St. Agnes Church in Overtown, that appealed to the government, the federal government, that we need housing, you know, for the people that are that are living in Overtown, because they're working in our houses and they're making our people sick. So it wasn't trying to put people from Overtown into better housing to increase their quality of life. It was because they didn't want the diseases and the viruses coming from Overtown into their homes. And so they finally got money and they built Liberty Square, which was a gold mine when you first moved there. And a lot of great Miamians grew up in Liberty Square. So over time, very often when you have high density and people that are similarly situated on a low economic status, it brings a lot of other issues. And so the violence, the crime, the drugs at Liberty Square were insane. Okay, I'm trying to make this fast, but again, I really want to give you context. I ran an organization called OIC in Miami-Dade County, and we were a job training and placement organization. And so half of the people that were coming in to work for us had criminal backgrounds, right? But that was the population we were working with. So we had to find a way around it, and we did. And we did really well, to the point that the U.S. Attorney's Office wanted to start an initiative called Weed and Seed. Weed out crime and seed in social and economic programs. This was under the Clinton administration. And so I was hired to be the executive director of Weed and Seed. And we went to the top of the 300 weed and seeds in the nation. We were #1. And that wasn't me saying it. We received awards nationally and recognition internationally for the work that we were doing. And for the first time in 30 years since the McDuffie riots, who recalls the McDuffie riots in Miami? Okay, so that's something you want to write down. You want to do a little history. McDuffie riots, McDuffie. Arthur McDuffie, he was an insurance salesman, and he lived in Liberty Square. And he was murdered by a police officer. And it created a big disturbance in Liberty City. So the McDuffie riots. And so, at any rate, so it was the first time during our Weed and Seed effort that new development came into Miami-Dade County, into Liberty City. And so you say that was success, right? Clean up your drugs, homicides went down 75%, and Chief Darling, some of you met Chief Darling in the first session, and he spoke briefly in the second session. He was a part of that. He was a part of that Weed and Seed. He was the major over that area, over Liberty Square and the surrounding area over there. So we were extraordinarily successful and getting awards and everything. But then I see all this new development coming in, and what do you think happened to the people that lived there? Gentrification. So I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm trying to make the neighborhood better, and I am, but for who? And so that's where education came in for me. I said, you know what, I gotta leave this. And I've got to get more education. How do we raise up the people while we raise up the environment, the real estate? And so I got a master's in community economic development, how to build the community from within. So now I get it now. I didn't have those skills then, but I have it now. So we have to be careful, because community economic development cannot exist in a place where people don't feel safe. People will not come to Broward College North Campus if they do not feel safe. Faculty will not stay or come if they don't feel safe here. Yes or no?
Yeah.
We heard some of that this morning. So, it's important, number one, education, right? That's why you all are here, you recognize the value, unless you got forced, like either you're gonna go to school or get out. I hope none of your parents said that. Did any of your parents say that? How many of you not telling the truth? But that's what we need. We need the capacity to change neighborhoods, to change the world, to change communities. We have to have the capacity to do it. We can't just make it happen because we want to make it happen or we feel like we can make it happen. We have to have the tools to be able to do it. That's why you're here. So, Liberty Square, I spoke briefly about this. It got really bad. You had 12th Court and 13th Avenue, and now most of the gangs in Miami-Dade County, from Miami Gardens all the way down to Florida City, from the south border to the north border, have some affiliation with 12th Court and 13th Avenue. Right there in that little area of Liberty Square. So, things have changed, obviously. What you didn't see in the documentary, which came earlier, and I encourage you all to look. It's streaming free on public TV. For I guess for us here, I don't know what is the public.
WLRN. WLRN.
No, TV.
WLRN also.
Yeah,
Okay.
PBS.
Okay, so your local PBS you can access Raising Liberty Square free. And one of the things that they talked about, which is so important, is that Liberty Square is built at a high elevation. It's at a higher elevation. They talked about how people will be underwater because of the sea levels in time. You saw that? So Liberty Square is prime real estate. You're 20 minutes from South Beach, you're 15 minutes from the airport, 10 minutes from downtown. Prime real estate. So by people moving out, gentrification, it allows for mixed income into the area. Gentrification. Only 5 families at the time that they released this documentary had returned out of the hundreds that left, that left. So, there's many different anecdotes and ways that can take this conversation, but I'd rather just stop, pause, get your comments, your feedback, educate me on how you feeling, how you seeing it. Or maybe the neighborhood that you grew up in. You're seeing things that are concerning to you. So I throw it out to you.
All right, so come on with the questions, but maybe I can ask you the first one. So how, what does it mean, crime prevention? Maybe that you can help us understand so that people can contextualize what we are talking about. What's the crime prevention? that you're
Okay,
talking
gotcha.
about?
Well, number one, it's strategy. Strategy. You have to have a plan. And we start just like, okay, let's say we're going to fix Broward College crime issues, whatever they may be. Right? We're going to fix it. So we're going to all brainstorm. We're all going to come up with, 40 ideas on how to fix the crime issues here. And then we're going to take those 40 ideas and we're going to group them in terms of their likeness. And it may be 10 of us say that we need better lighting as we go out to the parking lot to our cars, whatever it is. That tells me that this is a serious issue. This is on something on everybody's mind. And why do we look for 40 ideas? Because you're going to get stuck at about 20 ideas, and then that's when, I don't know, is it the left side of your brain, the right side, whatever, the brain that we, side of the brain that we don't use much, starts to get stimulated, right? And you come up with the best amazing ideas. And then we come up with a collective vision statement. You know, what is our vision for Broward College North Campus? And then goals and objectives and timeline tasks. We built out a strategy that everyone is vested in. So every single one of your ideas, you see it built into the strategy. So now you're vested. It's a part of you. And everybody is included. What we did when we started to build out the strategy to repair Liberty Square, Liberty City, we went to the prisons. And we talked to the people that were creating the havoc, that were shooting and killing people. And asked them, you know, what do you think, you know, is the answer? What is your brainstorm idea?
Say the question again, sir. Say the question. What's the question?
Are you asking a question?
Go ahead, continue.
Okay, so the thing is, we have to include everybody in solving the problem. So crime prevention is not my ideas, because I read the literature. Anthony Braga, who's one of the top criminologists in the United States, he came to Miami this week. He left day before yesterday to see what we were doing, because they had went to 20 cities. And he said that they didn't see any city that had the collaboration, community collaboration that we had. Police, community, reentry in the prisons, in the jails, in the hospital. We have many, many touch points. But, you know, crime prevention, it starts with not the brainstorming, it starts with sincerity and a good intention. If you're a cop, right, it's not about, okay, well, you know, I can make a good salary, I can get a house with some down payment assistance, blah, 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 blah. He says, no, maybe I can help solve a problem because my sister had a problem and my mother got jacked up. And I'm sincere about wanting to do better for my community. I'm sincere and well-intended. To the point where you're willing to take 44 years of your life and devote it to making things better for your neighbors and for yourself and for your family. So it's having a sincere, good intention from the start. That's really where it begins. Getting the knowledge. A couple of names you want to do your Google Scholar searches on is Anthony Braga, David Kennedy, right? David Weisberg. Those are all thinkers of crime prevention that have molded a lot of the work that I do. You would probably want to consider, if any of this is interesting to you, you might want to consider reading some of their literature, because they're top in the business in this work. Come spend a few days down in Miami. We, like I said, we had Anthony Braga here looking at our work. We didn't put on a dog and pony show. And I told him, I said, we're not going to do a dog and pony show for you. We're going to give you this is what we do. Every week, what you're going to see is what we do. We do a walking one-stop, where we carry federal, state, and local resources, the areas that have experienced recent and persistent incidents of gun violence, creating access. I can't tell you how many events we did at the community center in Liberty Square, and people would not come across the street to access whatever it was we were providing, whatever it was. So we came up with walking one stop by the grace of Allah. I said, well, why don't we take those services right to their doorstep? And that's what we did. We took it to their doorstep. So elected officials, community service providers, law enforcement, all community activists, all coming together and bringing the services right to their doorstep. Now you have no excuse. And then we bring the career source mobile unit on site. So if you don't have a resume, we'll help you write one. You don't know how to do job search, we'll teach you how to do job search. Whatever it is, bring it right to your doorstep. Sometimes it's just access. People don't have access to the opportunity, don't have access to the solution. So we bring it right to them. That's what's up. We did that Monday. We did 2 walk one stops on Monday. We did a trailer park, and anybody ever lived in a trailer park? I wish you could have seen what we saw on Monday. Because there was just a homicide there. Early that week, early in the week, there was a homicide, so we walked one stop there. And we went to another, anybody remember the name King Carter? 6-year-old boy that got shot by a stray bullet in Miami, King Carter. We went to the complex where he lived, and it's still hell. Still. So.
And so how that reduces the crime? Like we took, there was a college, Broward College students, we went down there, and it was strange and surreal. Some of the students still emailing me and telling me that was the most enriching experience for them because they were planting flowers and bushes and stuff with the juvenile justice, young people involved in the juvenile justice system. And it was a quite strange experience to see those kids who are there because they're punished. So they're basically, in America, we consider volunteer work, social work, a punishment, right? So they're being punished to be there, and Broward College students volunteering to come and plant flowers. So when they start interacting, it was quite an interesting, one girl said to one of our students, she says, you know, I have never talked to anybody in my whole life who went to college. You're the first person I'm talking to that is going to college. And then the students, they encourage her, yeah, well, you can go to college too, right? And so they were talking about that and stuff. So how is that helping, or rather reducing crimes? What's the crime prevention part of that engagement or interactions that we did?
Just like you said, showing what people was possible. We have people that in Liberty Square that had never been to the beach. So we started an initiative where we took children from Liberty City to the Bahamas. Never been on a plane, never been to the beach, and never saw black people running anything. So they go to the Bahamas and they see black people running everything. Not that they own everything in the Bahamas, but they run everything. And so it was very empowering. And we took the children that had the greatest increase in grades. You could have went from straight F's to straight D's and be selected to go with us. You didn't have to be the straight A student. Just the one that had the greatest improvement, the ones that had the greatest improvement. And it was amazing. And then on the flip side, we brought some from the Bahamas to Miami. We took them to the jail, right? Scared straight doesn't work. But we brought them there. we brought them to the jail and see if you know anybody from the Bahamas?
Most of them.
You had to go on?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Fox Hill prison?
No.
They have a prison called Fox Hill in the Bahamas, Nassau. And the toilet is a 5-gallon tin can in the middle of the floor. That's your toilet that everybody uses. You eat only if a relative brings you something or they throw whatever scraps they want to at you. Your pillow is a concrete slab, and there's no AC. And this is the Bahamas. And so we brought them to the jail in Miami. They said, you got 3 squares, you got a workout room, you got a TV room. I need to move to Miami. I'm like, oh. You know, so exposure can go both ways, right? But expose people to things that they've never seen before. Take them out of the box. Show them what's possible. Show them how other people live and the opportunities that are available, you know, to you. You know, and sometimes it's the reverse. So you let them see that, look, your situation may be bad. There's people that are much worse than you. Makes you grateful and thankful. And then, you know, maybe you want to do better for yourself because you're so blessed to have all that you have. You know, so sometimes it's that exposure. You know, I never talked to a person that went to college. And who knows? I don't know. Maybe that made a difference. Maybe that child now is enrolled in college because they had that exposure. And so for some of you, it's that exposure to something that opened your eyes up to what's possible.
So I kind of wanted to shift back, if we can, to what you're talking about gentrification. And I'm really curious about the role of developers in kind of like your world. Especially, so I lived in Jacksonville for a few years, and getting like harm reduction programs was extremely difficult. But developers were bringing up like luxury apartments everywhere, and you know. So I'm curious about how kind of these profit dynamics kind of affect the work you guys do, and how you guys try to mitigate that.
Put your money together and you develop it yourself. I mean, you know, it's, the market forces, particularly in South Florida, you know, it's, what are you gonna do? I mean, you know, move to South Carolina where the rents are a third of what they are here. You know, it's really tough. I think that what we have done is create access to employment opportunities, to education, so that you are also raising up your economics. Are you being here right now as a student? Then you yourself are putting yourself in a better economic situation, most likely. Not 100%, but most likely you're in a better economic situation than before you enrolled in school. Okay? So it's tough. Market forces are what they are. I mean, you know, but people can pool their monies together, right? You know, and sometimes, let's say, how many people in the room? We got about a good, maybe 30, 40 people in the room. Okay, so each one of us is going to put in $100, you know, a month, right? 40 people in the room times 100 is what? 40,000, right? 40 times 100. You missed one that was a little less. No, it's for 40,000, right? 40 times 100?
Yeah.
Right. So 40,000, okay, and so that's a down payment for a house. And so one of us now gets a down payment for our house. And then next month, another one. So after 40 months, after 3 years or 4 months, each one of us has enough for a down payment for a house. Okay? And the other thing is something that my grandfather said, save 10% of every dollar you make. Right? Don't live beyond your means. You know, this is a buy now, pay later society. You'll be drowning in debt for the rest of your life. You'll be surprised how much wealth you can accumulate just by not taking credit.
Right.
Next question. Go ahead. Just louder a little bit because we're trying to record it.
So gentrification, when they're building these communities, do they involve like in the plan stuff for like education and like different businesses that they can access jobs or things like that? Or do they just like build kind of the homes to move people out?
It's a combination of all of that. What happens is that developers will come in and they want to buy land or property at the lowest possible price, and they want to sell at the highest possible price. So if I'm living in a house that is worth $100,000, probably doesn't even exist in Miami-Dade County, but let's say $100,000 house, right? And I sell it. Well, that developer is gonna need, even just like Valencia did in this picture, I mean, in this documentary. She fixed up a house, you know, and put impact windows and, you know, a new roof, the whole 9 yards. Now that $100,000 house is now worth $200,000 to $300,000, you know. And so now the person who wants to buy it, they have to have 2 or 3 times the money to get into that house than what she had to pay because of the improvement. So at some point, unless you have the economic wherewithal to keep up with the market, you're going to move to where you can afford it. And that's pretty difficult now.
So I think you answered part of her question. She was asking like when gentrification is like occurring, right? When they're trying to build these houses that are, or sell houses that are way higher than what they were actually originally bought for. She's asking, do they also like make changes in schools, to make schools like better so that people who are maybe not as privileged kind of are forced to leave, like they make more private schools where people can't necessarily, you know, enroll for free and things like that. I think that was what she was trying to ask. On top of the housing situation, like also in terms of education and academics.
Yeah, so that's a big one. I'm sorry, I didn't get the gist of it. That's a historical question that you have to look at the establishment of universities in the United States. And Professor Mirsad, I'm going to throw that response to you because you educated me as to some of that. And the power structure in the United States is largely driven by Ivy League, so forth and so on. That's good.
I'm going to share, those of you interested, I'll send you the article and you can read it and you can see exactly what Wayne talks. But education, think about it, guys. The first thing that you encounter when you're young, school, right? And so it has a big impact into what happens later, right? That's why I told you, I introduced, for example, Boaz. I want you to understand, look, Broward College can do things like that, right? Can make awesome students because we care, right? If we do. Go ahead, ask the question.
Yes, what are your goals for this year that you guys plan on achieving for the organization?
I didn't hear the question. Can you say it
What are
louder?
goals?
What are the goals that you have this year?
Yeah, to scale up. Because we demonstrated a lot of success in Miami-Dade County. So there are other communities, like on Monday, the people that we met with this week from Chicago, they were so impressed with our work that the superintendent, which is like the chief or the director of Chicago, is going to meet with us and trying to learn how they can do what we do there. So be able to take what we've learned, our experiences, our best practices, and take it to other communities. We've had visitors come in from Copenhagen, Denmark, in the past 12 months, Philadelphia, Memphis, Nashville, a cop from Belfast.
Oh, really?
Belfast, Ireland.
Wow.
Who's
I lived there for a while.
who's the Eisenhower Fellow. He came to visit us. And so now how do we take our success and bring it to other places?
We need to bring you to Broward. Let's see you, our Broward Sheriff Liaison Officer.
Would a 20-second comment?
Sure.
That I
How do
think
we
it's,
bring this to
I've learned a
Broward?
lot from this, obviously, and we could all, I mean, the applause I want to give you is just overwhelming. But New York City, I don't know if you have chapters there, you can explain after if you like, but this situation is happening now, it's been happening since I left New York City in the 80s. They have rent control, and obviously most of you would be aware of what that is. It's trying to keep people in the community that have been there forever and the families. So developers who control the politicians in the back, they have been able to pressure and eventually whittle the rent control down to the point where now the rents are exorbitant in New York City, and people are fighting like just to make the rent, that have lived there, similar to Liberty City. Now, of course, it's multicultural in New York, so it affects, you know, every race and every ethnicity, and so there's this cohesiveness of tenant organizations up there, which have fought this, obviously, like you're fighting this, and everybody, the good fight, you know, for everybody to have an equal opportunity. And what I learned when I was involved in what I do here, if anybody's heard of what we do, the SEPTED, that behind the scenes, this is something you probably know, and I'm just sharing the thought now because you brought it up. The developers, when they're coming in, the community itself often doesn't even know in the backstory how these developers are influencing the politicians to zone and get these developments so that they can get them approved, and then they work their way into the neighborhoods, as you said, buying up these little properties, et cetera, and then suddenly, none of the original people are living there anymore. The building I grew up in, it was in the projects in the city, and out of that building, only one of the original families is still there. It's a 2-bedroom apartment, and there's about 12 people living in it, just to pay the rent. These are my friends, they're from Ecuador. And all I can tell you is everybody else, my sister, you know, and my cousin who lived in the building, Tito, all of us basically had to leave and go somewhere cheaper. And we're spread out. We've lost our contacts, our community connections, and so forth. We can't afford maybe to fly and go see them very often, or a phone call occasionally, or an email. But they destroyed the community. And I think that's what you're getting to. You're trying to preserve it. And I'm telling you, they are unscrupulous. The developers often, when they get into the city and they influence those politicians to approve these projects, and somebody like your group and yourself and enlightening people like this, you got to get in from the very beginning. We have a group now of these residents that are coming into the early part of a project that's being developed in Pompano, and it's gentrification, and it's big, and you know, it's all behind the scenes.
Is it right there, like down there?
Near the casinos and so forth, but you'll see. Sure, a few of the locals, you know, benefit, a few, but the majority overall don't. And it's sad to see it, because, you know, I came from that background of, you know, no money, poor parents, you know, and all that, and seeing all this fight to go rent, and then watching all my friends get, you know, displaced. So, like, you know, like, I love what you're doing. I love this walkthrough because, you know, I'm hoping that we can have some kind of a network going afterwards. All right, I've said enough, sorry, but thanks for letting me say a few words.
Thank you. Okay, so let's wrap up, Wayne. So any final thoughts in terms of recommendation to students? What career could be, but briefly, because they have to leave, what career you think, you know, do they have to be a law enforcement career, or could be, what if they study art, like we were talking? What if they study nursing? What if they study computer science? What if they study history, right? How do they get involved? How do they, can they project themselves into this type of activities where they serve the community and make their living?
Experiential learning. You know, I mean, a lot can be achieved in the books. You know, like I mentioned about Anthony Broward, one of the top research, most cited people in criminology. But he has no experience on the ground doing the work that we do. You know, so, and he was so thrilled. When I mentioned to him that we took some of his literature and implemented it into our work. It's like, wow, you know, somebody's actually reading and paying attention. So you have to take the theories that you're learning and you're writing about and experience it on the ground.
Okay, but I was asking a different question, Wayne. I was asking, can they see themselves into these areas? I'm not asking how do they learn, but I'm just, because my students oftentimes think, okay, I'm studying biology and that's what I'm going to do. Or I'm studying nursing and that's what I'm going to do. So can the nursing student be involved in these things?
Yeah, of course, because, for example, in nursing, we have what we call the hospital-based violence and dementia program. Person gets shot, we have a trauma surgeon that is our medical director on the scene, trying to put their body back together and hopefully keep them alive. We have a clinical social worker based there that's going to talk to the family and talk to the victim and find out what do you need, you know, to transition out of this incident has taken place. We have master's level social workers that are now, once that person says, yes, help me, that will go ahead and assess the behavioral health, the trauma level, the levels of trauma, economic status, and all of that. We have a nurse, Cleveland, young black male, 30 some odd years old. He goes into the neighborhood and he looks like the older brother of our clients. And he's a nurse. So a straight black young male nurse. And it's like totally atypical of people's perception. And so, and you know, and by the time he finishes, like, you really a nurse? And he'll help them with wound care. And like, maybe the social worker doesn't get in. Maybe I can't get in. Maybe, you know, none of our team can get in, but Cleveland get in because I got stuff oozing from where I got shot, and I'm in pain. And so I want to talk to Cleveland, okay? So there's that type of aspect. Art, I don't necessarily use this in my work, but a lot of people do, where they use art to help people deal with trauma and to transition from you know, crime or whatever. So, you know, art is a tool. You know, but it really goes back to, you know, emerge yourself with an organization. Ickna, your brother from Ickna, he left. They're in a lot of places. You know, I mean, you tell me what you're interested in, I can plug you into something that, you know, make it interesting for you. But the work is not inside the classroom. The classroom is what's giving you the capacity to do the work, right? Without the theory and the knowledge and the homework and the tests and all that, you're not going to be able to do the heavy lifting without it. So you get that so you can do the heavy lifting. But if you do the heavy lifting while you're still educating, then it becomes meaningful. Then you say, oh, okay, this is what I want to do, or this is why I want to do what I want to do. You know, it becomes relevant instead of, I'm going to school so I can make, you know,
Sure, Mr. Mann, Professor, just from my perspective, civil planning and local politics, local civil planning, adding to that huge list. You get into be planner, you know what's going on and you affect it. Planners are huge, and then they become directors of the planning and development services, and they start to regulate the building. And the politicians like don't have all the power anymore. If you become politicians, you know how it is, local really controls everything in the end, that touches our lives personally, but like that local planning group, when I sit in those meetings with the local planners, and they're all young people like yourselves that got out of college, and they're designing neighborhoods and so forth, their influence is massive. And that's where I think, you know, adding to that list would help. I mean, just from a perspective that I get in my
Involvement.
And I just want to add also that on a local level, you don't have to be a politician to sit on like a city committee.
Right.
You can actually sign up to be a committee member in your city where you sit and you actually pass policy and you discuss things and your opinion matters. And then for me, I majored in public administration, and I can tell you, I tell everyone all the time, any job you can imagine in the private sector, you can imagine in the public sector. There is a public sector space available and open. Now granted, there's some give and take, you know, you don't necessarily get paid much more when you're working in the public sector. However, you have, I would argue, a much greater impact. You do get other kind of benefits. This is me just plugging in public jobs, government jobs and stuff, but I'm telling you, any chemistry major, there's a job for you. Nursing major, job for you. Art major, job for you. Music, there's a job for you. So I always tell people, take a look at the public sector, take a look at what jobs are available, and then you know, you can maybe, if you're interested in working with people, there's always ways to find yourself into these kinds of projects and stuff. And also when you're in that position of working in the public sector, you do have a certain degree of influence because you're more involved, you see things on the ground level and stuff, so.
This is another of our Broward College students, now professor at Broward College. She's actually offering a class in public administration this summer, so I recommend you take it. Well, with that said, students have to leave. We can continue our conversation. Thank you. I hope you learned something, guys, and you understood now the bigger picture.